Talk 1110 KBND.
Central Oregon. Hello, Central Oregon. We have another beautiful day here in Central Oregon. I want to thank you very much for tuning in to Talk Real Estate. This is your resource for relevant real estate information and that affects our local community. But thank you for joining the broadcast, and please remember this hour is dedicated to you, our listeners. And if you have any questions or any topics of interest or anything you'd like to discuss today, please don't hesitate to call in on the line, which is 541-388-1110. So today, again, thank you very much for tuning in. We're really happy to have you. And I'm gonna do a little bit of house cleaning today, a little bit of housekeeping. And I've been trying to bring in some interviews so that maybe we could talk through some of the different issues. Today, what I'm going to do is do a little bit of cleanup, a little bit of housework, bring forward some more of the history of the urban growth boundary and how we found that. Some of you may have noticed that the transportation needs of our community were starting to come forward in the newspaper and on the television, and then maybe to talk about some of the funding mechanisms that will certainly be presented to our community here shortly through the mode of whether it be a gas tax or a utility tax or SDCs, and hopefully I'll be able to answer some of those questions that you may have on those topics, And so in the interim, what I would like to do is let you know that I was hopeful to have an interview today, but instead of an interview, I brought in Uncle Curtis, and Uncle Curtis is over here from Eugene. He's trying to keep an eye on us to let us know. Uncle Kurt, how are you today?
Hey, I'm doing great, Fred.
It's really a pleasure to have you here, and it's a pleasure to have a little bit of sensibility come to us from Eugene as we're going through all of our growth. We can certainly enjoy your left-leaning perspective.
I appreciate that.
Oh, nice. Well, one of the things that brought Uncle Curtis over today is one of the festivities we have here in town is the Cargo Bike Festival that's happening down at the Bend Electric Bikes down on Hill Street, right next to the taco stand. I talked to the owners of the taco stand yesterday, and they said that they're going to be open for food. They're going to be doing some rodeo, some obstacle courses, an opportunity for you to see everybody in town that rides the cargo bikes and the electric bikes. And Gene over there at the taco stand is going to be more than glad to fill you up with taco food. He's not normally open on Saturdays, so I hope you enjoy that. A couple of the other things that we have in town is, you can always talk beer. It seems that as I go through the weekly schedule of what's happening in Bend, there's a beer festival, a beer fest, but this is the end of Beer Week, which I presume is the one of many beer weeks as we go forward. There's also a women's conference over at the River House, as well as what's happening right now is the Happy Girls Run, which is a half marathon, a 10K and a 5K. They want to renew, connect, and inspire, and we're just thankful to have them in our community and have them here for the weekend. So a couple of things. Here we are already May 30th. We're almost halfway through the year. We're rapidly approaching the longest day of the year. I would normally start the show with a little bit of housing statistics, but it's really a little bit more of the same that I've been saying the last couple of weeks, which is that we're a little bit low on inventory at the lower end of the market. It appears that the new listings are being outpaced by the pending properties, which basically means that the available inventory seems to be shrinking a bit. I just stopped in at a development this last week and was asking if I were to pick a floor plan and to have a home built, when would that home be completed? And they were saying to me that it was a timeline of somewhere in the 4 to 6 months, but 5 months would be something that we could probably anticipate. So sometimes in the statistics that I give, as I've mentioned before, some of the inventory that's available isn't necessarily something that you could go get in your car and go over there and buy today. It's something that may take some time for them to build your new home. A couple of other things that I wanted to bring. One was just the Bend Lifestyle segment that I brought in about what's happening in town. And today I have a couple of items to be able to give away for you callers that want to call in, 541-388-1110, and discuss. But one of the things that I'm going to pose as a question, and I'll answer it later if somebody else doesn't call in, and that's with historical facts of Bend. I have a gentleman lined up that maybe in the next couple of weeks may come in and give us some historical tidbits. I know one of the topics that he's been discussing lately has been Klondike Kate, which was a very inspirational and really quite a character in Bend's early history, and I'm hopeful that some of you listeners will enjoy hearing some of the interesting historical facts about our fair city. But the question that I will pose to you is, can anybody tell me how Pilot Butte received its name? If you could call in, please call in. Maybe you could share that information and share any information or any requests that you may have for additional information that we might be able to address. So today there's a couple of things that I wanted to discuss, which is primarily I wanted to bring us up to date a little bit on the history of the urban growth boundary. I think that I can squeeze that in right now before the break. Also about the transportation issues and about the gas taxes and SDCs. The urban growth boundary. The urban growth boundary is a topic that is getting more and more attention, and believe me, we will continue to give that the attention that it so rightfully deserves. The urban growth boundary is a policy that was established in Bend, and for those of us lay people might have a difficult time sometimes tracking it because there's so many acronyms that are used in association with the UGB, which stands for Urban Growth Boundary, the UAR, which is Urban Area Reserve, which is sort of the halo around the urban growth boundary. And then, of course, the governing bodies themselves, LCDC and LUBA and some of these. So I don't think that we really necessarily need to get caught up with the names as much as the process. And one of the things that I'm hopeful to share with you today is just how lengthy that process can be, and maybe some examples in our recent history of how lengthy that process has been right here in Bend. Because as we continue to hear that we're running out of land and property prices continue to go up. As I introduced last week, the urban growth boundary concept was first established by Queen Elizabeth in England in the 1500s, and then bringing that same model forward. Basically, it started here in Central Oregon. There was a Dr. dairy farmer, Hector McPherson, that was in the Willamette Valley in 1973, and he basically implemented through his life what he wanted to do was to keep that farmland and that forest land in production and allow all of the urban growth development to happen inside of that boundary. And then actually it was adopted by LCDC in 1979. Here in Bend, we first adopted the policy in 1984 and went through the urban growth boundary and urban area reserve process at that time. So now as we roll forward and find ourselves some 40 years later, we wonder, how did we get here, and what are some of the issues that happen with that process. And obviously one of the things that happens with that process is that it raises prices a bit inside of the urban growth boundary because of scarcity, and it also puts some onward pressure to go vertical with the development. So we'll see more multi-story building, multi-story apartments, those sort of things to get that core area density, because there's not enough available land for us to have that. But as the policy was originally drafted, and I think that there's a couple of key issues, and the one that I want to get in here before the break is that, this policy was written in the Willamette Valley, and it was written as a policy that covers the entire state from Astoria all the way over to Ontario. And living in the Willamette Valley, where it's some of the most fertile and productive land in the entire country, where there's plenty of water, there's plenty of everything you need to grow crops, it's much easier for a man to make a living, man and or woman make a living, in that area than it is here in the high desert, where we have such a short growing season and it's very, very dry. So that's been one of the problems that we face here in Bend. After we come back after the break, I'll get into another issue, and then maybe we won't linger too much on urban growth boundary and get into some other issues that might be of interest to you. Again, please don't hesitate to call. I'll give you an invite after the break. You can always call us here at 541-388-1110. You can always contact me on my webpage directly, which is askfredjohnson.com. Thanks again for tuning in to Talk Real Estate, and we'll talk to you after the break. Hello, Central Oregon. And welcome back to Talk Real Estate with your host, Fred Johnson. And again, on that break, I guess, in fact, I was wrong. I'm sorry. I promise that I'm going to get a little bit better on these transformations. And Uncle Kurt, thanks for being here with me today. How are you?
I'm well, Fred. This is great.
All right. I'm glad you're hanging out here with me. I like to make mistakes, and I actually have callers that call in to encourage me to make more mistakes, so I hope I'm making you all happy out there today. So we just hit lightly on the urban development or urban growth boundary before we took the break. I just wanted to share just a couple of things that have affected us here locally, and then maybe that might give some of you, our listeners, a little bit of ammunition, if you will, moving forward to know how you can be a part, how you can be a little bit active. If this is your community, get out there, let your voice be heard, and get involved in those things that affect you. Otherwise, it's just going to happen anyway. Because it really appears that growth is coming our way. There's not a lot that we can do about it. There's been about a 30-year plan where we have been marketing and advertising outside of the area and between all of the bicycle races and all of the different beer functions and everything we have. There's a number of people that come to Bend and think that this might not be a bad place to live. So I'm thinking that we might have a telephone call coming in here, so let me see what we can do.
Hey, Fred.
Hello, you're on the air. Who am I talking to?
Hi, Fred. This is Daisy.
Hi, Daisy.
Hi. I have a question for you.
Thank you for calling in. Uh-huh.
You're welcome. I would like to know your point of view, and as thorough as you can make it, on building an Adair or Highline home. I know that for realtors, there's no business for you all in that situation, but I guess in particular, I'd like to know whether that is a option for a single woman with no guy around to run herd on all the contractors, and what you think about all the owner responsibility in building an Adair or a Highline home.
Well, sure, Daisy. I'd be glad to address that.
May I listen off the air?
Pardon me?
May I listen off the air, please?
Oh, you'd like to just hang up? That's fine. Just let me ask one question of you before you go, please.
Okay.
And do you already have the land that you would like to build on?
Yes, the land is purchased.
Oh, the land has been purchased.
It's within the city of Bend.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Well, you bet. I want to thank you again for calling in today, and I'll get on that and try to answer that. And if I don't answer it well, call me back and ask me more. Daisy, thank you so much for calling in.
And thank you so much for your help.
Thank you. Bye now. So that was a great question, and one that comes up intermittently here in town because and basically what she's referring to by Highline homes or Adair homes is these are home builders that will build on your lot. So obviously in their marketing, they offer plans that will produce this home on your lot for a price per square foot, which obviously looks and appears to be way less money than any contractor in town could build a similar property. But a couple of the things that are sort of omitted in this case, as Daisy calls in, she already owns the land. For those people that don't have a lot of capital up front to build their own home, not having the land suddenly becomes an obstacle because you can't finance at FHA because you virtually have to purchase the land first before you can contract to have a home built on the land. Secondly, a couple of the things that are sort of omitted in the overall cost is, with a home, when we're out there comparing a price per square foot, particularly of an entry-level priced home, it breaks down to a price per square foot, but that price per square foot includes everything. It includes such things as landscaping and a driveway and some hookup to the septic system and to some form of water, maybe fencing, maybe some window coverings. There's a number of additional expenses so that if someone just goes and says the price of the land in one hand is this cost and the price of having my home built in the other hand is this cost and adds those two together, yes, it's going to appear to be a value that you won't be able to find anywhere else in the market. However, by the time you buy the appliances and landscape the land and do a bunch of the other things, plus incur the additional, if you're putting a septic system in, obviously there's an excavation expense and that needs to go along with it. And for you, Daisy, if when you're getting your bid and that property is in the city limits, one of the things that you may want to know is whether the systems development charges are included in the bid or not included in the bid. because right now I believe, and shoot me if I'm wrong, but I think that it's right around $23,000 is what the systems development charge is for a single family home in the city of Bend. I hope I answered that question. You know, all too often as a realtor, I've stepped into that situation sort of after the fact, and so, you know, someone felt as though they were going to, you know, beat the odds and beat the current pricing in the city by contracting to have their own home built on their lot, and then by the time it got near the end, you know, people don't realize they're going to run out of money until the end of the project and not at the beginning of the project, and then that's when you see. You know, there's no front porch, and there's stones, and there's things that are left unfinished because, quite honestly, they just ran out of money. And I guess the caution that I would offer is that do as much homework as you can up front. Try to factor in what improvements you would like to have on the land, as well as what your appliance package. Are you going to have garage door openers? You know, a number of these things that are not included in that bare bones price per square foot when you're having a contractor come out and build on your lot. Again, thank you, Daisy, so much for calling in. So what we were talking about, again, I'm going to go back to urban growth boundary, is that, you know, the urban growth boundary, you know, one of the other problems that it creates, not only does it put a little bit of pressure inside the core area, but it also is a very lengthy process, and it sort of has that all or nothing mentality. You know, our local Newt Bueller has done a very good job. He's passed a bill at both houses recently to hopefully amend that process just a little bit, so that you don't get all the way to the end and find that, such as the last time it was in, I think there was like a 20% portion of the urban growth boundary that was presented to LCDC that wasn't acceptable, so that the whole thing got kicked back to be reworked, which I'll kind of go through the calendar of events there, and I think that there'll be a number like me that are a little bit amazed at how slow the process works. But basically his legislation would say that if you presented and 80% of it was workable, we'll accept the 80%, and then we'll push back that 20% to you to go home and work on with your constituency, if you will. So here in Bend, you know, one of the things that happened, obviously, we established our urban growth boundary in 1984, and then there became the need to, well, actually, two things happened. We had an urban area reserve, and the city fathers, right around 1998, decided that it would be a good time to annex some of that additional land that was inside of the urban growth boundary and outside of the current city limits at that time. And at that time in 1998, we had a city population of 35,635, and that annexation brought in 13,649 people, bringing the overall total up to over 50,000 folks. So what that did is that then allowed the city of Bend to make application with federal funding, because we then became a mid-sized city, and so it allowed federal funding to come into the city of Bend. At that time, which was kind of an interesting process, there was a public vote, and inside of the city, people voted 3-1 to expand the urban growth boundary. Outside of the city and in the surrounding county, people voted 3-1 not to bring in that additional land into the city. So it was really quite interesting to see how that process worked. And now there's also what's called, they amended the rules to call what's called a double majority, which means that there would need to be a majority of people outside of the urban growth boundary that would acknowledge it coming their way, and there would need to be a number of people inside of the urban growth boundary acknowledging that we want to extend it out that direction before it could be implemented. And again, we're sneaking up on the break here. I thank you so much for tuning in to Talk Real Estate. I'm your host, Fred Johnson. You can call me anytime, 541-388-1110. My webpage and contact information is either askfredjohnson.com, or, of course, you can just email direct if you'd like, fred@dukewarner.com. After the break, I'll come back. I don't know if Hi there, Central Oregon. Welcome back to Talk Real Estate. Sorry, I'm kind of digging the transition music here a little bit, but welcome back. It's always a pleasure to have you. We really appreciate you listening in today. You know, I think Uncle Curtis is going to sleep. Kurt, you asleep yet?
No, I'm not. I'm totally enjoying it.
Okay, there we go. I wanted to thank Daisy for calling in today. And Daisy, I hope that I answered your question out there about building on your own property. The other thing that I wanted just to dance through quickly, if I may, because I think that when we hear this process of the urban growth boundary and that it's a lengthy process and we don't really understand what does that mean, nobody really presents that side of it in our local media. And just in the last example, I'll share with you what happened during the last thing. As I've shared with you earlier, we're required to maintain within that urban growth boundary an inventory of land that would be sufficient to accommodate the current rate of growth for 20 years. And what that means is you look backward and you say, okay, how many acres of land have we been absorbing? Okay, we'll use that to model, and then we'll move forward and say, well, if we're going to absorb that many acres per year for the next 20 years, how many acres of land would we need? And so what that does is that that sort of dictates the total number of acres that we would hopefully bring into the urban growth boundary. Let's see, I think we might have a caller here that's looking to talk to us. Thank you for calling in. You're on the air. Who am I talking to?
Tom.
Tom?
Yeah.
Tom, how are you?
Doing good, man.
Good. Gosh, haven't heard you in a week or two. How you been?
Doing good. Life's treating me well.
Well, I'm always happy to hear that.
I was wanted to put in my 2 cents on that urban growth boundary. I went driving around the east side of Bend.
Yes, sir.
And it just, with all those 2-story houses.
Yes.
And no one has any privacy. It just seems like the quality of life is, if they could plan it out where they don't have to pack those houses in there so tight, it seems like it would be a better overall game plan for the citizens of the town.
Tom, that's an interesting perspective, and let me just sort of address that a couple of ways, and kind of go back to the beginning of LCDC, and let's just say, for discussion's sake, that you could build those small lots. Now, this is a bit of an overstatement because I think that it's 7.3 homes per acre. It's not quite as extreme as I'm going to say, but it's easier for me to do the math in my head if I say you could build 10 homes per acre. So let's just say that you could build 10 homes per acre, and the goal of LCDC was trying to preserve land and trying to be able to build as many properties inside of that growth boundary as you could. So now we take it to the next and say, okay, well, we're going to build 1,000 homes. Okay, so we're going to build 1,000 homes, and if we're going to put those all on a format where we're getting 10 homes per acre, that means that we need about 100 acres to be able to accommodate those 1,000 homes. Mm-hmm. However, if everybody came to the area and they wanted to have 5 acres so that they could have a barn and a garden plot and all that sort of thing, we would need to have 5,000 acres. Mm-hmm. And that is in its purest form, that is the basic premise of the urban growth boundary.
It's just the results of it all are just they could make the quality of living so much better if they would allow people a little more space. And everybody doesn't need a half of an acre, but at least have enough space where you have some privacy.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And a number of things that have been discussed on this urban growth boundary is, again, earlier as I had that, well, it was written for the Willamette Valley. Well, with the Willamette Valley in that last model, if you're taking 5,000 acres of good productive farmland out of the ability to grow food and crops for our community, that's something that's worth fighting for. Mm-hmm. You get into an area such as Bend here, and you look to the east toward Boise, if you will, and
yeah.
Gosh, there's enough sagebrush and jackrabbits out there for everybody.
Yeah. Why be crowding us in so tight? Give us, that's what I thought. Man, it seems like there's plenty of room east to expand. Why is it being crowded in like this? Well,
and that's and again, I was just also talking about this. Thank you so much for calling in, Tom. This really makes it a lot easier to explain some of these issues. You're 100% correct. Our sewage treatment plant is out just north of the Bend Airport. So if you look at some of the land that's to the eastern side of our city and you see that it's flat, it's level, it's easy building, it's easy digging, you can build roads on it, you can network them real well because basically the canvas is completely clean. But a lot of that property that's on the eastern boundary is also zoned EFU, which is exclusive farm use, which the urban growth boundary process does not allow us to make that transition straight from farm use straight into residential use.
Oh, I
it
see.
requires that there's sort of an interim period there. It's what they call the urban area reserve. So basically every time that they would establish an urban growth boundary, then there would be a haloed area that would be directly adjacent to that would be sort of as it's called, the UAR, or Urban Area Reserve. So once it gets that Urban Area Reserve title, then it can make the transition from that into a residential application. But it can't go directly from the EFU zone straight into the residential zone.
It just seems with all the bureaucracy that the final results are not good.
Well,
as far as what I'm seeing on the east side of Bend.
Well, I think that there's some speculation that, I've heard it said before that maybe urban planners aren't human, but yet they want to set the rules for how the rest of us can live.
Yeah, they have their guidelines, and that's all they consider or something,
Well, and then let's go to the other side of it too. When you're going down a street, and let's say you're going to provide sewer hookups and water hookups. Well, if for every acre you're able to get 10 hookups, and that means that you're only going to go, I don't know what that is, a side 200 square feet, 200 feet a side. Somebody's going to shoot me for this. I know that it's 53,460 for square footage, but I don't remember what the sides are. But in other words, when you're extending the sewer or the water, you get more hookups per foot, the higher the density.
I see.
And you're digging a lot more and getting fewer hookups, so that the city there's a hookup fee. They're getting less in recovery with the hookups being further apart.
I see.
So it's like so many of these issues, to say that it's part of the ecosystem, but everything, it's a ball of yarn that's gnarled together pretty tightly. And to be able to unravel it and go, okay, well, how is this going to work best moving forward?
And what is best?
And yeah, for whom exactly?
Yeah.
From a cost perspective, core area density. From preserving exterior land, core area density. But the process that we have had in place has been so cumbersome. And truly, you'll get so close, such as this last time, and I'll go, well, there's a few items here we don't like. Take it back and go do it over again. Well, basically what that means is that we find ourselves in the time where we are now, that I think at our current rate of absorption, we maybe have a year and a half of available land inventory available. And because of the amount of rock that we have here in Central Oregon, it means that land is getting increasingly scarce to bring services and improvements to. And so we're up against this housing crisis as it's being represented in the newspaper, which affects each and every one of us every day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm hopeful that more people like yourself, Tom, will get out, try to get informed when these issues come. Particularly with this urban growth boundary being expanded, that will go before the voters, and it'll go before the voters from people in the country, people in the county area, such as yourself, or the people that are inside the city of Bend. And, as I pointed out here before the break just a moment ago, sometimes the perspective of which way that goes could be different on both sides, and there needs to be a meeting of the minds so that, my hope, and I think every one of our hopes, are that, we're going to have to swallow the pill and the inevitability that the city of Bend is going to continue to grow. But now if we can get out in front of that and have it grow responsibly, and have it go to where it reflects all members of our community, not just a vocal few. And what that's going to necessitate is those of us that are interested to get out there, get active.
Do something about it.
And that's exactly right. So,
Fred, hey, I really enjoy your show, and I'll continue listening.
Tom, I really like having listeners like you, and feel free to call in anytime. It makes my job go so much more smoothly.
Very good.
You have a wonderful day.
Fred. You too. Bye-bye.
Take care. Thank you so much for staying with us here at Talk Real Estate with Fred Johnson. We're about ready to have another break here in just a moment. We'll come back after that break. Remember, you can contact me anytime, 541-388-1110, or you can visit my website. That way, if you want to tell me what you really think, all you need to do is go to AskFredJohnson.com. There's a contact section there, and you can do whatever you'd like. Encourage you to call in, and really look forward to hearing from you after the break. Thank you so much. Hello, Central Oregon, and welcome back. Here we are at Talk Real Estate with Fred Johnson. Happy to have you back. Feel free to call in 541-388-1110. Hope you're enjoying yourself out there. I decided just to go ahead and take that urban growth boundary thing and just set it to the side for right now because we're not going to get through anything else. Obviously, that's going to be a discussion that we're going to have for quite some time. So there were a couple of other things that came up this week that I thought were really quite interesting. And one of them obviously is the streets and roads issue and how we're going to fund that, what that's going to look like. There's been a number of different things proposed, such as increasing the gas tax, which I think is kind of funny. You know, we found ourselves here a couple of years ago with over $4 a gallon, and there wasn't anybody that was talking about bumping the gas tax. But now all of a sudden, with it under $3 a gallon everywhere in the country except for the West Coast, and by the way, I filled up yesterday for $3.17 here in Bend, Oregon. They want to bump that up another 5%, but as we're trending and moving forward, there's a federal mandate that we're going to have to be getting better gas mileage in our cars, and they're shooting for 50 miles to the gallon. We're finding with this core area density that more and more people are riding their bicycles. And is that really the funding vehicle that should be going to funding the roads? Should we increase the taxes? And we're going to get into that a little bit later. We've got some of those issues because once again, like in the ecosystem, it's really intertwined with a number of different issues. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about this week, which I think is really, really important because we're getting an awful lot of attention at housing availability, housing pricing, and who's responsible and what's happening. And obviously it's a number of contributing issues. But an article came out in CNN on Money this week about buying a home versus renting a home. And in a number of places throughout the country, it's actually advantageous with our low interest rates and our price points now to buy a home over renting a home. So I've got some of those statistics, but it looks like we've got a caller coming in. Let's see what we've got here. Hello, welcome to Talk Real Estate. Who am I talking to, please? Hello, welcome to Talk Real Estate. This is Fred. Hello? Oh boy, what did I do this time? Hello? Well, I'm going to go right on. I'm sorry about that. I must have cut him off. I'm sorry about that, whoever it is that called. The telephone, too, is another thing that's a challenge for me. Anyway, we were talking about the fact that what's happening nationally, Bend isn't the center of the universe, no matter how much a lot of us here locally would like to believe that. But through trending throughout the entire country, we're finding that rental rates are moving up more rapidly than property appreciation. And so what's happening is as the rental rates are starting to move upward, there's a spread between the cost of shelter, if you will, and whether it's to your advantage to rent a house, basically pay with after-tax dollars, or whether it's to your advantage to fix your rent for the next 30 years, if you so desire, by buying a house and at today's interest rate. So they used a couple of things such as I believe that the interest rate that they used was 3.87 for a 30-year fix with a 20% down payment, and that the buyer would remain in the home for 7 years. That's what they use as their baseline for their comparison and their graphs. But what it showed there was that, get this for some of the information, that it's 24% cheaper in San Francisco to buy a home than it is to rent a home. In the Seattle area, it's 26% less expensive. Honolulu was a little closer at 16%. So even though there's stiff competition for some of the available properties that are out there now, please, if you're on the fence, if you're thinking about it, now may be a very good time to give that some consideration. Let me see if I can do a little better with the phone this time. Hello, you're on the air. Hello, you're on the air?
Yeah, hello.
Hello, can you hear me over there?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you now. Welcome to Talk Real Estate. What's your name, please?
Richard Coast.
Hey, Richard. How are you today? How can I help you?
I'm good. I just wanted to give you a little bit of history.
Yes, sir.
I'm 80 years old. I came to Bend when I was 3 years old, and I've lived here ever since, except when I was in the service. And you was wanting to know how Pilot Butte got its name.
Oh, by golly, there you are. Congratulations. Congratulations. You won a car wash, Mr. Coates, so stay on with me afterwards so we can get your contact information.
Okay. Anyway, you want to know how it got its name?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. When the people came across in their wagon trains heading for the Sun River area,
Yes, sir.
Pilot Butte was the pilot that guided them this way.
That's correct. Their pilot was, their scout or the navigator for the wagon train.
Right. And they could see the butte, and they kept coming to it.
That's exactly correct. By golly, you won that one. That's the Pilot Butte was used as a navigational aid by the pilots of the wagon trains, whether they were coming from the east or the west. And and the reason that they were coming here is because this is where there was a low bank crossing on the Deschutes River.
Yeah, my foster folks homesteaded in Pilot Butte, but they did come on to Bend later.
Oh, wow. Well, Mr. Coates, thank you for sharing. You're 100% correct. People think that it has something to do with flying aircraft, which, as you know, it has absolutely nothing to do with that.
Right.
And one of Ben's first names was Farewell Ben because I guess in that time nobody stayed here. They either were replenishing to go over the mountains to go west, or they were replenishing to go across the high desert to go back east. And,
right.
So that's where they crossed. Well, great. If you'd stay with me, I'm going to put you on hold. If you stay with me for just a couple of minutes here, I'll get back to you, and we'll make sure that you get your car wash.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Coates, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was interesting. Bend is so rich with history, and people have been coming here to settle in the high desert for so many years. All of these tales are just wonderful. Here's a gentleman. Boy, I'd like to spend some time with him and talk to him about what it was like over the last 77 years that he's been living here. I bet he's seen a fair number of things in all of those years. Anyway, so I was just finishing up here just a little bit. I think I hit the high points of it. Basically, where there's the biggest edge in the country on some of these key mortgage factors is that, if you look at purchasing a home and you look at the lower interest rates and you look at your holding expenses and realize that your monthly payment is actually made with pre-tax income instead of after-tax income with the rent, and you factor those and allow somebody to do the math for you, if you're concerned about escalating rental rates, if you're concerned about the possibility, someone explained to me, if you take the risk to buy a house, you don't know if it's the right thing. Well, if you lose the house, you're going to be a renter again anyway. So there's really not that much risk in it either way. And this is one of those times where the advantage to purchasing a home, the stability of purchasing a home, and the opportunity with the rates low as they are, if you're giving it some consideration, please get out there, contact your realtor. Take a look at what's out there for available inventory and see if you can find a home for you and your family. And this is a really good time to consider doing that. I want to thank everybody for joining us here today at Talk Real Estate with Fred Johnson. I'm obviously Fred Johnson, happy to be your host. During the off times, you can contact me anytime at my webpage, which is askfredjohnson.com. And please feel free to call in there or write in there if you have a request for someone you would like to hear interviewed, if there's a topic that you would like to have discussed, or you'd like to just get in line for a car wash. You've got some input for me for the show. I appreciate all your input because, after all, this show is for you. Next week, hopefully we'll have an interview. I have a couple of different folks that I'm trying to get in to interview. One is a property manager to talk about some of the rental issues that we have here in town. Also, I'd like a mortgage broker to be able to come in and talk to us about some of the different programs that are out there for affordable housing to be able to get in. Also have some person that's a planner to talk about all of the new apartments. You know, we're going to have nearly 1,000 new apartments that are going to be built here shortly in town, and hopefully that'll offer some relief to people to be able to find some affordable housing in close to town. So we've got some real exciting issues that are coming forward. So please tune in, stay tuned in, get out there in your community and get active. Listen